Hey, this is Faruq Hunter, and I have been asked to speak to you about self-sustainability during the African Awareness Week. I am contacting you now from Coastal and our offices at the Astana International Finance Center at the center of the New Silk Road project inside of Central Asia. Um, we are the only African American company now working in Central Asia along the New Silk Road, building self-sustainable cities for both African Americans as well as local people and other business interests. And we are also builders of the Freedom Nation and Freedom Village in the United States of America. Now, in order to kind of map back what all that means to African awareness, first, I think it's important that we become significantly aware about a little piece of history about Africa. And I think that it's important that you know that the New Silk Road project is also designed to connect a set of roads that are now being built throughout Africa and funded by the African Development Bank in order to ensure connectivity between multiple countries throughout Africa, and also to prepare us for what's called the Global Land Bridge, which is a project to create land-based trains and other logistic elements like roads that connect the entire world by land, right? And I know that might be the first time you looked at it, so I'm going to say some things when I'm talking. I'd like for you to research them, look them up, and always, I hate to do the plug, but Google it, right? So, in Trump, Google it. So, one of the things that I like to talk about is a little bit of history in Africa, because when we talk about African awareness, we as African Americans have to realize that our African history started, or should I say ended, 400 years ago when we were brought over on slave ships to the United States. At that time, Africa and its history, of course, was jaded by being chopped up into little pieces by Europe, with the exception of Ethiopia. That's another conversation, another talk, one I'd love to get into, but not now. And we were in this type of African history. And that type of African history is not really what we want to talk about. We also don't want to go so far back to start talking about like the Cushites and Nok and so forth. And so this is pre-Christian era in the whole world. This is the pre the coming of Christ. These different major wonderful places in Africa existed. And I should also say it's also before Christ when we had the Egyptian Empire. And when that ended, either by the hands of Moses or by the hands of Romans, you choose. However, what we want to do is talk a little bit more about where Africa was. Let's just say, let's go back to around the mid-700s after the coming of Christ. Very significant time for Africa, very significant time that for our future and our history and what it means to us. Because at that time, most of Africa was pretty much segmented into small groups like the Cushites, okay, the Bartas, and other groups that had farmers, hunter-gatherers, and other people that were spread out in different small kingdoms throughout Africa. The biggest show in the world at that moment was this big green piece, which was the Islamic empire of the Omiyage Khalifa. This was the last or the fourth caliphate after the coming of the Prophet Muhammad, which came inside 570 AD, and also had a run for 40 years into 620s. He received the message and then started Islam and the Islamic Empire and the Islamic movement in the world. Now, we use the term Islamic Empire, but it's kind of a misnomer because Islam was more of an ideal, and the most important and significant part of that ideal was that no king was a king of kings. The only king of kings was God himself, and therefore it disassembled all of the structures of existing kinghood, chiefhood, and chiefdom inside of Africa, inside of Central Asia, and all the way across even towards China, okay, where it basically changed the idea that one person ruling was not going to be the best way because we were all ruled under God himself. Now, a significant thing happens during that time where the Umayyad Caliphate stretches out, taking most of North Africa. And it's important to know North Africa because Southern Africa was more so developed over time by people coming from North Africa down. But the Umayyad Caliphate actually met with the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty was the first dynasty during the golden age of China that actually created the New Silk Road and actually really enhanced traffic between the different places in Africa, Europe, and China. And we need to understand that it wasn't really Europe and China that were trading with each other. It was Africa and Asia that were trading with each other. And when the military might of the Tang Dynasty tried to push over towards Africa, coming through Central Asia, they were stopped by the Muslims of Central Asia, that then stopped them once physically, but then after that, just like in Africa, started to convert the Chinese over into Islam as a way of ideals that bonded all of us together under the idea that no one on this earth could be a king better than the ultimate king, which was God. So under this concept, things ruled, right? Even in the 1200s, we see Mansa Musa emerge. Mansa Musa is the wealthiest person on earth, and he leads this wonderful caravan across all of northern Africa and into Mecca in order to make amends for an act that ended in the life of his mother. And during that act, he wanted to go to Mecca to pray for his forgiveness. And when he did that, he actually restructured the entire economy of northern Africa. That's how wealthy he was. A lot of us know about Mansa Musa and Mali and the kingdom of Mali in the 1200s, right? But this precedes something that happens in 1428. Now, 1428 is an extremely significant time for Africa. And it's an extremely significant time for a couple of things that we've been told don't go together well. And that was even Islam. In the 1420s, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Portugal and Spain pushed back the Moors out of southern Spain and then pushed down into Morocco and took over Berber territory. That was the part of the major structure of power in northern Africa. That then led to Rodrigo Berga, who was currently Pope John II, then authorizing slavery and authorizing the slavery of other people. And in essence with that, what also happens, you have the East Indian Trading Company and other factions go out in the world and start the first set of slavery inside of South America, where they kill almost 6 million people in 6 months. And then they have the African slave trade that then leads to a system of colonialism where the Europeans try to slice the entire world up into their own little pieces, including Africa, and impacts our past and our present. But there's something to denote in the midst of all of this. They don't really take over China very well. There are some other things that happen, but they don't get China, they don't get Ethiopia. So in understanding that that happens, that kind of situation in the 1400s, we then accelerate ourselves into where we are today. And we look at the opportunity to create this uber connected space. We know it can't really happen under the European era. We have people in office now, like Trump, who would rather see us all go to war instead of us actually working out our problems as we did before the European era. So how do we do this? How do we get to the point where we can now focus on building a unified tomorrow, where we can think of a unified Africa and Eurasia? Well, that's why we're here in Kazakhstan, right? Where we can actually then fan out from this centralized point and into Africa. This is where we start talking about self-sustainability and self-determination, because it is our determination to ensure that African Americans have to work with Africans and they work with everyone in Eurasia in order to build the kind of future that we have been inhibited from since slavery existed. That's important. So what did we do? Well, we went on a journey. We set out a couple of years ago, maybe like 7 years ago, and we went into India, we went into different places in Africa, we went into Eastern Europe, we went into Asia, we went into Egypt, and all kinds of places to discover Ethiopia. Basically, what was going on in the world, what was happening with the political side of things, what was happening with the native side of things, what was it that was the truth of the world, what was really going on so that we could then impact our own future. It's very important to know this African Awareness Week should lead to an overall awareness of self and awareness of the reality of the world and where we place in that world. And you can only do that if you reach out. You can't watch the news or look at something that's been constructed historically to then keep you away from knowing that we all got along before all of this stuff hit off. Before the 1400s, we were pretty good. A golden area of society, Aztecian society in the North America, South America, and then all of this stuff happening, beautiful stuff happening in Africa, to the point where we could sit so peacefully that when somebody came from another place to take us, didn't really think it was a bad thing because we weren't ready to fight them off. We weren't in the midst of a warring state. We were in peace. So self-awareness and self-determination that allows people in this day and age to then build the new cities that you see in China, or the Akon city proposed in Senegal. Wonderful stuff, right? This kind of stuff is started when we then reach out and we start creating, like me and my brothers did, by buying our own land inside of Georgia. And then from buying our own land, going out and educating ourselves on how to then take up raw materials again. These are the skills that we knew would be valuable in Africa, anywhere else in the world, because us as African Americans, we still have yet to build a construct in this world. Everyone else who came out of colonialism or slavery either owns their own country or something else, but us, we are unaware of what's happening in the world. We're unaware of our continent. We're unaware of so many things, and we don't have self-guidance and self-leadership, which is a necessity before going into Africa and before taking advantage of helping the world to get back to the way it was in a peaceful state. So we went and we learned, and we still are learning from different kind of architects around the world. We've traveled down to places like Brazil, and we've brought brick making machines. We are the only African American brick maker in the United States today. We also have taught classes on both how to build sustainably, how to cut down your own trees and mill your own lumber and build your own products, as well as technology classes throughout Northern Africa, Egypt, other places. We have taught, and we still taught, and we're implementing some of the best smart city projects in the entire world. And we've also developed our own workforce with African American people called the Free Folks that work for our organization, Freedom Builders, that go out into the world and build the kind of constructs that allow us to have our own individual say in the world and negotiate our own abilities. We're currently developing these different projects along the Chinese border here in Kazakhstan. We've also went to the extent of building in Africa. We're building inside of a place called Kosi, Atlanta, inside Senegal. And we've broke ground in the United States. We've taken other people in as freedom citizens. We've built the most sustainable, that is by the U.S. Department of Energy in the Kingdom of Morocco. We built the most sustainable home in Africa. And as an excellent thing, we did it with our young people. Those are my son and my cousin sitting here building this wonderful house in Morocco inside of this image. And we've also doing this because it's necessary to create a future where us as African Americans can bond with Africa. But I want to tell you during this African Awareness Week that Africa's place and African Americans' place in the world is not just to go into Africa. It's to go into Africa with the knowledge that we have and to bring up constructs that allow us to have wonderful, powerful, peaceful lifestyles that connect us with the entire world, where we negotiate our own paths, where we have strength in both our ladies and our men, and then we see a future that was stolen from us, that we now know how to overcome. That's my bit for African Awareness Week, and this is what I wanted to make you aware of. If you want to know more, then please go to our website at freedomnation.me. And if you'd like to be part of the movement of Freedom Nation to connect the world through our own autonomous, free societies and villages and smart cities, then go to freedomnation.me/apply and become a freedom citizen. And that's it for your brother Faruq, African Awareness Week.